This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, just another voice in the wilderness. Today I'm going to make the case for why we should vote far left instead of far right. Far left and far right appeal for people that have real grievances that can be economic, political, ideological, cultural, social, all kinds of grievances. Usually the most important are the socioeconomic grievances or political grievances. It has to do with the rights, with the freedoms and rights that we are supposed to have, to enjoy. But as everybody knows, values and cultural wars, which means that race, gender, identity, and other sexual. A lot. There are lots of things that can be weaponized. There are many values that can be weaponized, morally weaponized, to instrumentalize people, to fanatize people, and tribalize people, and there are differences, huge differences, asymmetrical, and that they cannot be for the people that try. It is so stupid that people believe that fascism and communism are just the same. Is just one coin. Is the one of the one of the side of the coin, and you know what I mean. This is a lie, a total lie, and I know lots of people. Not lots, but that maybe most people I know believe it, and it's not true at all. It is it is a joke that people believe that Nazism, National Socialism, because it's the word socialism is there. They say that Nazism and communism is the same or are equivalent. Anyways, so the grievances, as everybody knows, there are real grievances and there are fictional grievances. The fictional grievances are those that are basically that are manipulated, that are the manipulation of facts or the existing problems, but to transform them into ideas and ideologies, to frame them ideologically in a way that they become a problem. They become a way to appeal to people as if their lives are or their belief systems are into jeopardy because of those. These are what I try to say is that while the far left, the radical left, the communists, the socialists, the eco-socialists, all these parties and groups and movements that are anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist. They have they share a common enemy, which usually is the capitalist class, and the imperialist class, which is basically the same class. Okay, the oligarchs and the plutocrats that actually run the show, and they are the ones that dictate the rules. And by the rules, I mean they are the ones that write the laws, they codify into law. Their privileges are codified into law against our rights. That's how it works. The culture we have is dictated by them. They are the ones that have the money and the power to pay for all the people that are also called creators, you know, content creators, artists, actors, directors, writers, everybody, for academics, for everything. So they are the ones that write or pay for it, for how the economy should work, what is the economy, what are we supposed to believe what is an economy, what is the main culture, which means what is the rules that our cultural ideological frame, mind frame, believe the reality is. I mean, everything is about them being able to. So that's the class which the left, the far left, is against. And that seems to me, I mean, again, culturally and ideologically, we are supposed to believe this, that without this class, without their entrepreneurship, and without, as if people could not be entrepreneurial and would not be innovative or would not be creative, without the need to be, that we should be ruled by this the class, by this class that basically wants to control everything, to own and control everything, to privatize everything. And remember that they have also plans, and this is not conspiracy theories, okay? I don't buy into, I know that, but I know that conspiracies exist. In the end, with the rise of the useless class, and because we are, according to many people, we live in the Anthropocene, okay? So therefore, we will be most probably eugenics will play a role to kill a lot of us in order to make room for them. That they want the planet. I mean, do people understand that this class, the far right defense, is the very class that will destroy us, that dehumanizes us, the systems they build, because they need these systems, the economic, the political, the cultural, the social system, the value system, the moral codes they create. They build it in order to glorify them, to give them legitimacy, to rule over us. And the far right, that regular, ordinary people vote expecting to be saved from the center left and the center left, right and the liberals, because they identify them as a source of corruption and the ones that are responsible for the social and cultural and economic grievances, which is true to a lot of extent. But then, since the left, the extreme, the far left, is perceived as a thing of the past, as not, it's as not an alternative, basically as a non-alternative, because someone said so, and because it's supposed that the experiences have failed, and because supposedly China is capitalist. No, China is capitalist in a certain sense. It is. There is competition, but the problem is that capitalism is not the market economy. The market economy is much older than capitalism. Capitalism is a system of accumulation and exploitation and imperialism. A market economy is how people exchange goods and services in a given society. That's nothing to do with capitalism. Capitalism is a system of inequality, of monopolism, and concentration of power and wealth. They instrumentalize the market economy. I want to emphasize this point because this is very important to understand. So, when we believe that they have failed China, let me finish this. China is a socialist market economy. And this is why there are principles. That's why politics needs to be, is politics always is the one that has to dictate the policies, the economic policies. The economy needs to have political ends, and it has always political ends. If they are not socialistic, which means if they are not for the social, the common well-being, the collective well-being, they are capitalistic. They are for the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of the top 0.1%. Of course, you need to understand that in a pyramid scheme, as our hierarchical systems, you have at least 10% of the population that benefits. They are the accomplices. They are the ones that are the professional managerial class. This is needed. And then you have the 1%, which are the rich. And then you have the billionaires. You have the oligarchs and the plutocrats on the top. And do you think the far right, nationalistic, populist, fascistic, they want to touch this order? Or do you think they use culture, traditions, social values, religious values? They weaponize these values, and then they instrumentalize and fanatize you. That's why, because you see, when you see the Nazi groups, they exist everywhere, in every country. There are cells of Nazism everywhere. And these cells of Nazism, they attract. What kind of people do they attract? Young, frustrated males Yes, young males with frustrations and grievances, all kinds of grievances. And they find in these groups the scapegoating. That's why far right is not an alternative. It's not because it's democracy versus totalitarianism or authoritarianism. We live under authoritarian rule and we call it democracy. It's not even anymore managerial democracy. Managed democracy. It is an authoritarian system that we live in the Western countries. And more authoritarian. But these groups, these far-right groups, they use also economics, but they never talk about inequality. Where does it come from? Why it is right for certain people, because of that is meritocracy. I know, there is always the moral, there is always this glorification, which is the moral weaponization of merit, as I said it before many times. And they use it in order to fanatize these people, to make them fanatics, which means they sociopathize them. That's what the Nazis groups do. They find the groups, the right groups, the immigrants, the blacks, the Jews, the gypsies, the females. It can be any group or subgroup that can be the target. And then they use the real grievances of people, they weaponize them, and they instrumentalize people. And this is especially in these hardcore groups like the Nazis and other really fundamentalist groups. They sociopathize, they transform them into weapons, into instruments of terror. Because if we understand how, if we go deep and we have an holistic understanding of our sociocultural, the sociocultural nature of the human condition, we do understand what I'm saying. This is not because we are inherently evil. This is how we work as human beings. Our cognitive and affective systems work. Don't think by yourself. Analyze the reality. Don't care to follow what the evolutionary psychology or behavioral economics or whatever it is. Evolutionary biology. Do they have something that you can? Yes, but a lot of what they explain is not it's not an explanation. It's a justification for the existing system, because people have been educated, and the language framing and the ideological framing is all from the same source, and so many people don't get it. That these people that are called scientists, academics, and others, they have been instrumentalized before they think by themselves. Cannot they escape? They do. But since they have a career to run, and they are competing for in the marketplace, in the ideas marketplace, it's not about the truth. It's about trying to have a name. It's about coming up with an idea or some sort of thing, and then make them in the models. That's why modeling. That's why models. If you frame the conditions, or if you create an artificial, if we create an artificial environment to reproduce a natural environment, we are already framing and creating a model that will distort to some extent the results. So this is very, there are so many things that we need to take into account to understand not only our very condition, but by understanding our very condition, we do understand a lot about everything else. So the left, the extreme left, as a main enemy, is the extreme left, or with all its diversity and also cultural wars and everything else, that so many divisions, and because again the problem comes the same source. You know, the problem in the far left, the anti-imperialist and the anti-capital left also suffer the same problem, which is competing with each other and creating most of the times artificial fractures, because it's about who, I'm right, you are wrong, blah blah blah. This bourgeois mentality unfortunately affects us to levels that most of us don't even imagine that we can be affected by this bourgeois mentality. So that's why also in the far left there are also these problems. The far right that's why I would never vote for the far right, because the far right doesn't want at all to identify the roots of the problems. They are part of the roots of the problem. They want to keep the system. They just want to pretend that they are liberators and saviors, and they are the ones that are going to drain the swamp. And they are not. It doesn't mean that what I'm saying is generic. I'm not saying that a specific party in a specific country a far right party doesn't have a positive role. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that we need to understand at a very deep and comprehensive level what is the difference, what kind of society do we want, and that we do not allow ourselves to buy into slogans and catchphrases. And because it's very easy, we are so easily manipulated and instrumentalized that we most of the time don't even realize it. That's how it works very well. It is the process by which other people's ideas, become our own ideas without us filtering them, scrutinizing, and having an analysis about all the implications that those ideas or those narratives, to understand the implications and consequences, and we just assume them as ours, when in fact we just have been colonized by them. That's why when we think about reason, we need to think about that there is always the process by which we are instrumentalized is always a process, a combined process cognitive plus affective. It's always the qualitative part, the link is emotional. There is always an emotion, a basic emotion or a combination of a basic emotion plus social emotions. Okay? It's how we work. I mean, you can ask, why this guy, why should I listen to this guy? He's just a nobody. I don't want you to believe that I'm telling the truth. I want you to do what I would like you to try to do the same I've been doing for decades, many decades, to expose myself to knowledge, to scientific knowledge, and to many sources. That's why psychology, philosophy, economics, politics, you name it. Because I felt the need that I need to know, to have the intellectual tools. That's the same. I have never been, I could not care less about economics and money. About money everybody cares about, but, to understand the monetary system, and in the aftermath of the 2008 crisis, I immediately wanted to understand how this thing really worked. What was, and I started to listen to people that were talking about the financial. One of the first guys I could be a millionaire right now. One of the first guys that I started to listen to is the guy called Max Kaiser, of the Kaiser Report in RT. That's when he was the first guy I listened to talk about Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was $1, and the guy Max Kaiser was telling people to buy it, and I'm still totally I know nothing about these things, but if I would listen to him, I could have bought a couple of Bitcoins at the time. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and then I started to listen to research on that, and I still do it today. I listen to lots of people, and because you need to listen. The process by which we learn, by the way, this is things that have nothing to do, but everything is interrelated. We don't learn only by understanding something intellectually, but sometimes we don't even have a good understanding. We have an incorrect understanding of things. That's why it's very problematic. Then we think we understand, but we don't. The process by which we learn is by training. Because I say it so many times, how do we replace the dominant narratives in our subconscious minds to new narratives? It can happen slowly or suddenly in some cases. But usually for a consistent transformation, for a consistent change, you need to have a conscious transformative process, which is deeper. It has to be an holistic process and conscious process where you use your new intellectual knowledge to transform yourself, to transform your consciousness about the reality, about the perception of that reality, and the perception of yourself. and everything else. That why this is important? Because when we are exposed to this, to the reality, and we have the political landscape, and you see most people, you can see it in the European European continent. Who are the parties that are rising? The far right parties. Okay? And why don't we ask? We should ask why. Why do common citizens, ordinary citizens, poor people, people with grievances, with real grievances, buy into the far right narratives, and they do not. They seem to be oblivious to the far left. Why is that? Do they ask themselves why they don't want to be identified with communists and socialists and anti-imperialists and anti-capitalists? Is it a stigma? Is it a taboo? Is it prejudice? Biases? Do most people believe that there is no that is the far left has nothing to offer? Why is that? Is it objective knowledge? Is it? Or are we again buying into or paving our way to a fascistic or Nazistic political and ideological reality? And what do we expect to gain with that? What did our ancestors a century ago gain with that? And by the way, think the Europeans have enjoyed what is known as social democracy, and this model of welfare state under a capitalist regime, and most of them don't ask why. And the reason why should be obvious to all of us. That's because the existence of a communist conscience, the proletariat of that of those decades were much more conscious of class war than we are today. And the capitalist class, both the European capitalist class and the American capitalist class, they knew that they needed to make to open the purse, the public purse. So that's why we have social democracy. That the Americans call it socialism. They don't like they don't like Swedish, Norwegian, Scandinavian in general, but also German and French. Socialism, yeah, right. But that was not. That was because there was a menace, there was a threat, the communist threat. That's why they made those concessions. It was not natural. That's why it's eroding fast since the rise of the neoliberal fascism. I mean, you can have you can explain things in many ways, and sometimes the words should not be used. Sometimes we abuse the use of certain words. But what is neoliberalism? What has neoliberal policies done to the social democracy? And now, what is the answer for it? The answer for it is the far right. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So this is important points to think about. Socialism, eco-socialism, I'm not talking about any particular, I'm talking of as a generic concept. I'm not talking about particular groups or particular visions, okay? I'm talking about, if we want to have a future as humanity, do you really believe that the far right, that weaponizes values, social values, gender values, it's about the immigrants, is the gays, is the ones that I mean, okay, you know what I mean, and instrumentalize people around those people with economic and social grievances. But then the enemies, instead of being the ones that have created the problem, are those that are also victims of a society that uses culture as a battlefield, weaponizes culture. Okay? And those, which is the far left, that points out the real culprits, the ones that have been fighting back social democracy, that have been rewriting the rules, and they have been and then the concentration of wealth and power has been growing everywhere. And we can see that, and then the financialization of the economy. You know, the financialization of the economy that came with that was accelerated with the neoliberal phase of this of the adoption of neoliberalism. It has been only making things worse, because the problem that we have now, it was caused exactly by the industrialization process, the empty out of the real economy through the financialization of everything, through the rise of the fire sector, finance, insurance, and real estate, to make money out of money without producing anything, just by seeking rents and profits without producing anything irrelevant for the society. Was it the responsibility of the far left? Of course not. The far right has been participating in it. The people that today claim to be the saviors, the same people, they have been participating in that process. And now they claim to be the saviors. And they also are part of the same problem because they just collectively, all of them, liberals, center-left, center-right, democratic, Christian Democrats, far-right, all far-right, all of them always point the finger to the left. The left. They say the left. They don't even want to describe what the left is. Liberals are left. Liberal progressives are left. Center left is left. That, by the way, the center left just became neoliberalized. So there is no center left at all. Or there is left, extreme far left, which is where the left principles still are still alive. The center left is not left anymore. Maybe progressive, but not left. And all of them point the finger to the left. Why? Because they want you and me to believe that there is if there is somebody if there is some political, if we have to identify the problem with the political left. It doesn't matter what kind of left. We just demonize them. They cannot be an alternative. Because all liberals, centrists, and all of them, they would rather, and believe me, they rather want to have a fascist state than a true democratic socialist state. Even with the market economy, I'm not talking about. I'm not even talking about a centralized economy. I'm talking about socialism with a market economy, but they don't want that. None of them want that. But somehow, the culprits of everything are supposed to be the left. This kind of generic, that because it's exactly the point. Make sure that you and me, with real economic and social grievances and political grievances, don't perceive the far left as an alternative, or at least as a counterweight to the rise of the far right. Because at least we should think about voting or about organizing around the anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist values of the organizations and movements to counterweight the rise of the far right. And we should think about it, in my opinion at least. It is very important that we think about it. Because it might be our future that is at stake. And the way I see it in the European context, in the extreme, if we do not, if we keep kicking the can down the road, we run the risk of being, or of even being wiped out as the result of a nuclear exchange. Because this is really, we are in a really mad, let me rephrase it. the European community plus the rest of the European outside of the borders of Russia has been transformed in a madhouse. That's our reality. And this madhouse is run by capitalists and imperialists, not by you or by me or by communists or socialists or any anti-imperialist. And you believe that the far right is the ones that are going to reset, to drain the swamp. Yeah, right. Yeah. I think we need to think to give it at least a second thought. All right. Thanks for listening. I hope you give it some thinking. I'm not trying to convince you on anything. I'm trying to see if we are not. I mean, we might. It is more dangerous. I mean, the situation is more dangerous than most of us are aware of it. I mean, I think so. I think people is still believe that everything is still kind of normal. They still have access to the same things. Most people still have a job. I mean, all the things they might seem, there is still some normalcy for most people, and therefore people are hoping for the best and common sense to prevail. And but we don't understand that these people, the capitalist class, they will do whatever it takes. Okay? That means they don't care about how much destruction, how much death, suffering, to the absurdity and obscenity you can imagine, to the evil point, in order to keep controlling the system, to not losing the control. That's the main point. Their main aim is not to avoid destruction, death, suffering, unnecessary suffering. No. The main point is by any means to not lose control. And again, the only ones that are a real menace and threat, that's why they hate them so much, is the extreme left. I'm sorry to say, but that's the truth. Okay, thanks for listening. I will be back soon.